Every child is an artist. The problem is remaining an artist when he grows up. Pablo Picasso. You're listening to Parenting in the Rain podcast, episode 47.
Welcome to Parenting in the Rain, Insights from the Experts podcast, providing parents all around the world with valuable knowledge to help with the biggies of family life. Here's your host, a registered play therapist, education specialist, parent coach, and my mom, Jackie Flynn.
Hi there, Jackie Flynn here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Parenting in the Rain podcast. This is episode 47. Woohoo! Oh my goodness, we have 3 more episodes until we hit our 50th mark. And at the 50th mark, then at that point, the next episode will be Play Therapy Community podcast. We're going to transition over, which really looks at very similar issues, but really exploring the therapeutic approaches and resources, different techniques that you can do to help children and families. So if you like this podcast, I'm pretty certain that you'll like the next one. There's so many experts out there that are so good. All right, so today's episode is all about understanding how art helps children with confidence, calm, and connection. As a play therapist, I love using art with my clients. Art engages more of the brain in the healing process, and it is ageless. Like, you can use art with any age. It's so very cool. But what about home? Does it help at home? Is it even worth it? It's messy, and sometimes it can get expensive, and sometimes it can leave the house cluttered. Is it really worth it? Well, I've pondered these things myself because, as you know, I'm a parent too, and all of these things come up for me. And the answer is yes, 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 it's absolutely worth it. Art therapy is helpful in so many ways, but just art at home is helpful in so many ways. And there is a difference between art and art therapy. So art projects can definitely help kids with confidence, especially if children are struggling in other areas. When children make something that they feel good about, like, hey, I did something really cool, really quality, that makes them feel proud of themselves, and they can perceive themselves in a different light than they do in other areas. They can perceive themselves as competent and capable of performing work that is really good stuff. This self-perception often generalizes into other areas of their life. So on a surface level, one might think that, what's an art project going to do to help them with their trouble in math or writing? Or how is that going to help them solve quadratic equations or help them learn the alphabet? It really provides those self-perceptions that gives them the courage to do the tough stuff. And to some extent that is right. It's not a direct link that, okay, just because you can paint a picture of whatever, then you're going to be mad or just an amazing person at math. But you will have that extra oomph, like, I have something good about me. And I remember years ago, one of my colleagues went to a training on preventing high school dropout. And one of the big key things that they were saying at that training was that it's important to really hook kids with something that they like, especially in the high school years, but this is true within school at all. You want to make sure that, especially for the kids that struggle in many areas, that there's something about school that they like. When there's something about school that they like, even if it's one thing like Lego Club or recess or art or music, and all the other stuff is tough, then there's that, okay, I want to go to this place, and that can really keep them more engaged. So art can be one of those things. It's another way of looking at one of the many benefits of art. So art projects, they also help children with emotional self-regulation, which, any age, all of this applies for any age, because when we sit down, and I know there's a lot of adult coloring books out now, and those can be really calming. But when we sit down and just engage in art, it really helps us to just calm down, helps that right and the left hemisphere of the brain to synchronize, which engages that calming effect. I love using the labyrinth. You probably heard my episode on labyrinths in previous episodes. If you haven't, it's definitely worth checking out. But that synchronization of the right and the left hemisphere of the brain, whether it's in the labyrinth or through art projects, like I love using finger paint and having somebody do a double mirror doodle, just a doodle where both hands do the opposite of each other, or just using both hands to design figures with the clay. That can really help that calming, because you're using both your dominant and your non-dominant hand, which not only can help activate another part of the brain that can help engage in problem solving, but that synchronization can really just lower that level of angst or that feeling of hopelessness, helplessness, or activation of anxiety. It works with so many different ways. When people can express themselves through art, they can really go deeper than they would if they had words. It's amazing. I love mandalas too. I don't know if you've heard of mandalas. I went to an art therapy workshop in Melbourne, Florida years ago when I was a school counselor, and I heard of mandalas for the first time, and we made them, and I was just floored at what the experience was like for me, because in counselor training, I'd say like everything that we do as counselors, we've experienced ourselves so that we know what it feels like firsthand. So in this art therapy workshop, we got to do the mandalas, and some things came out in my mandala that I had no idea that were even bothering me, but it was like I felt freer afterwards. I can't even explain it in words. It was truly amazing. In that same workshop, we did a soul collage. Oh my goodness. At that time, I had just recently started back to work. Maybe I'd been working for like 7 months after being a stay-at-home mom. And the lady had a table full of magazine clippings, and she had it all organized and categorized. But I got the magazine clippings, and she didn't tell us anything about it, just kind of pick out what you're drawn to. So I picked out my magazine clippings and I took it back to my table, and then I put glue on the back of each one of them. She had music going, and we just kind of cut it out. And then about 20 minutes later, she asked everybody to come to a good stopping point, and I looked at mine, and it told a story. It told a story about something that I would have never put into words, because it really wasn't even something that I knew that bothered me to the extent that it did. But I had, like, right in the center of it was a huge clock. And I remember thinking, gosh, it feels like I'm always in a rush. We're in a rush to get up, in a rush to go to school. I'm in a rush at work, in a rush to get home, get dinner ready, go to Taekwondo, do this, do that, rush, rush, rush. Just really governed by the clock. And I had just came from the year before, being able to go to the zoo and be able to go to the Space Center tours. We had like passes for different places. So we tried to do like the library, the story time. So it was kind of a tough transition for me to get back to work for all three of us, really. But in that soul collage, I had toys, but I had knocked them over, and they were over in the corner, and there were no kids playing with them. And as I processed through it, I realized, hey, this is because I'm feeling like we don't have any playtime anymore. We're rushed, and I can't remember all the details of it. Oh, and I had a big candy bar on there because I started eating in unhealthy ways, where before I had more of a focus on my health. I was conscious of, eating healthier foods. And it really kind of told my story in a way that I didn't even realize was my story. But after that, I made some changes. I made changes to the schedule to make sure we incorporated playtime. We made that a priority. I I still struggle with the time thing. I'm not going to lie on that. That's something I still feel rushed. That's that one's hard to overcome. But I did make changes health-wise too, and made sure to pack my lunch instead of just kind of eating whatever was available or some processed food. So this artwork stuff is incredible. It can really do some amazing things. But that was my experience. Through therapy with kids and families, I have seen some incredible things. And a lot of times it comes out in metaphors. So in EMDR therapy, one of the things in this one protocol that we do, we ask the client to think of, whatever happened to them and their trauma as an episode and what was the worst part. And they pick out the worst part and then have them illustrate that through an image. And a lot of times it would be a metaphor, and the metaphor is absolutely telling of the depth of what they're feeling. And through the processing, that image will change, and it will change into a way that really kind of helps you understand that their adaptive information processing, which is things are starting to look up for them. They're processing through stuff that was feeling stuck previously. So that is incredible power of art. I use these art therapy techniques with individuals, groups. I use them in family sessions. I use them with my couples therapy. I love doing that. There's so many different ways. You can use paints and clays. I love using the rocks. I love to paint rocks. I love to write on rocks. I love to get the pretty rocks off of Amazon and incorporate that in the Sandtray Therapy. And, I'll do some things, have people create a family crest and pull out what they feel like are the strengths in their family. And I recently got another big roll of the Big Butcher block paper from Home Depot. And in family sessions, I'll have the family members trace each other and then write what they like about each other on their body image. Or with my girls, mainly girls, I've definitely had some male clients too that have eating disorders, but have them trace their body, and they draw it how they think that they look first, and then they lean up against it and then trace it, and then they pick out the areas, the parts of their bodies that they like, and then the parts that they don't like. And then we reprocess through the EMDR therapy, sometimes through DBT, the dialectical behavior therapy, because it helps with distress tolerance and things like that. So you can really integrate art therapy techniques with so many different things and take that healing to the next level. So art projects can help with connection too. As I mentioned, the group and the family sessions, really, it can help people connect with themselves on a deeper level and really realize parts of themselves they didn't realize. But when they express it to others and others can relate to it or maybe not relate to it, but understand that person better, it can be very healing too. I have seen some of the most amazing, profound growth in group therapy sessions that involve art. It really is amazing. I'm like at a loss for words of the magnitude of how it can help. It can just be so healing. That old saying of a picture is worth 1,000 words. I think it's worth maybe even more than 1,000 words. It's worth even more than words. And that's where it takes us to different parts of our brain, because that frontal part of our brain really is the part that the prefrontal cortex, where it engages that higher level thinking. And that's where we get the words. But, like as kids, or, the brain isn't fully developed until adolescents are 21 to 24. It varies a little bit. So when we sit down and try to talk through issues with our kids or give them lectures, they're very limited on what they can process and express. But when we use art, we can get to areas of their brain that can really engage in the healing in the process. And that's why the the areas that they feel stuck on can really they can move past it much faster than if they were just to talk it out. So sometimes families have like an art cabinet or an art shelf where they keep those random art supplies. And as we talked about, it can get a little cluttered, a little messy because it's not perfect, especially when you get in there and start using little clips of paper or the yarn or the glitter, which some people don't like glitter, and the clays. For my families that I work with, and I suggest this art cabinet, many of them just, especially the kids, when I talk to them individually, they say that was like their favorite part of the week when they got to sit around the table and just draw together or create something out of clay or make something with beads and yarn. It's that connection, that time together, but also that expression. And we do that intentionally in family sessions too, like with my couples and families. I might have them, like put just a real blank mandala, just a circle, and give it to everybody and give them 1 minute, and then each a certain color of crayon, and they'll draw a picture on it and then move it to the other person, another person continue. And you can see a lot about family dynamics when that happens. And you can see how they respond to each other and how they are open for feedback on their stuff. So that can be used as an assessment to kind of see where the family is in terms of relationships and communication, but also it can be used for growth. And that's stuff that when you're sitting around talking, you can't really get there. You can't really experience it in that way. Another thing that I love to do with families is to give them all that modeling magic or clays and ask them to create a futuristic animal together in a habitat. And what does it need to survive? And you can really kind of see the dynamics of their family through that activity too. But also they work together and they create that connection that is so, so healing, especially when there's high conflict in the family. That feel good is few and far between. So when parents say, hey, what do we need to buy for our art cabinet? I usually freeze a little bit and I kind of put it back on them. I say this, what do you think you might need for your art shelf? Because something that I might recommend might totally turn them off. For example, the glitter. I love glitter. I love, 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 love glitter. But I remember when I was a school counselor, I had glitter. And there's a little 5-year-old girl in my room, and we're making like the most amazing little heart to represent herself. And glitter got on the floor. And other people that came in there afterwards, they weren't a really big fan of glitter. And they were great people, just not fans of glitter like I am. So I don't want to give people like a list of things to have. I think it's one of those personal experiences. You can go to the dollar store, to the department store. You can go out in nature, get some sticks and twigs and get some leaves. You can get rocks. You can get yarn. It's just so endless. So really coming up with your own list of stuff, it helps you to enjoy it more. And if you do it with your kid, it's even better. When I'm talking about nature, I was just thinking about, it's been years ago when we started this, maybe 6 years ago. We were walking, Max, my daughter and I, around the block, and we noticed somebody had cleaned out their palm tree. I live in Florida. It's beautiful around here. But the palm fronds were like at the curb for the people to pick up, waste management, but they were looking really, really perfect, some of them. So we both got an armful and we brought them back, and she took one to school and ended up painting it, and it went to an art show, made it like a Tiki Mask. Well, that's been our thing. One year we made them for like all our friends and families for Christmas. My friend Jamie, I love her. She has hers in Scotland that we made. I have a couple around my house. But basically, we just buy some acrylic paints, paint it, and we do Google some images of what tikis look like, but they're very unique. And we make them look all silly and some of them mad, some of them happy. And since then, I've started bringing those palm fronds to my private practice too. And I have a lot of the teens paint that. And I brought them there for mask, but I'm very non-directive in many activities. So I brought them there, and many of them just kind of use the palm frond to represent themselves, and they painted like a scene on it, or they used a color that matched the emotions that they were feeling. They took it to the next level that if I would have been directive and said, okay, we're doing this, this, and this, they wouldn't have went where they needed to go. So that's why I love play therapy. I love play therapy, really with all ages. So when you're like, if you do get an art cabinet, when you're designing it, really think of things that you'd like to enjoy. Don't feel like, hey, it's an art cabinet, I have to have paint, or else it's not an art cabinet. It's an art cabinet if you call it an art cabinet, because you are the boss, right? You can just kind of put whatever in there that you want to. Enough said. So remember that art in this context, as we're talking about it, is super expressive. So it doesn't need to be confined to paint and paper, color, and pencils. It could be going to the beach and making a sandcastle, or going out to the forest and getting some leaves and mounding them up, or pine needles, or rocks, and making some kind of sculpture. It could be whatever you want it to be. It could be writing a poem together as a family. My middle school students used to always laugh at how I say poem. I really can't. I can't make my words do what I want to on that one. It could be singing a song and expressing it with dance. It can be anything you can dream up. So as a play therapist, I personally love using the Sandtray. Wow, I've seen the most amazing healing sessions. Probably, well, I don't know, EMDR has been pretty incredible too, and the brain spotting and the play therapy. But they're all amazing, but the Sandtray Therapy is incredible. If you haven't yet listened to episode 44 with Tammy Van Honder, make sure you do that. She is the guru of Sandtray Therapy, and I'm like starstruck that I'm even a friend of hers. She's amazing. When I was an intern, I followed her and I learned so much, and I credit much of like my success and skills to her today. And, without sounding kind of conceited, I'm really good at it. So I learned from the best, and I've seen so much healing. Oh, I love rocks. I know I mentioned it a couple times, but if that's something that in our art cabinet at home, we have rocks, because they can be used in so many different realms, especially like with mindfulness, and they can even be used like as like when you're describing your strengths, or gratitude rocks, or as a resource. So many things. The possibilities are limitless. So in the show notes, I provided lots of links to art sites that can give you some inspiration. So I hope you like listening to this episode on how art can help children, but really can help anybody with confidence and calm and connection. You can find the show notes for this at parentingintherain.com. And when we transition over to Play Therapy Community, that's at playtherapycommunity.com. And we have a Facebook group for both. We have 3 more sessions of Parenting in the Rain. I really haven't made up my mind for sure if I want to integrate those 2 Facebook groups or just keep them separate. So I'll make a decision on that. I'm kind of torn. I guess there's benefits to both. All right. Thank you so much for listening. If you're an iTunes user, please subscribe, rate, and review. It means the world to me. I love getting your messages. I really mean that too. I'm on Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and I just Googled it, Parenting in the Rain podcast the other day, and it came up on sites I didn't even put it on. So it's kind of cool. It's even more out there. And we've reached like well over 100,000 downloads. So I love you guys. Thank you. All right. Until next time, take care.